Appearance on Dion's Daily Dose does not imply endorsement from or by any candidate or guest. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by Dion Bergeron or Dion's Daily Dose are his own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of any guest. Material and information presented is for general information purposes only. The Dion's Daily Dose name in all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owners, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose.
Well. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Dion's Daily Dose for Saturday, November 21st. I figured out a setting on my camera that I was able to actually pull it into full HD. Who knew? It was on 720 before. Let me know if you like this one better or if I should switch it back. This is 1080. We'll see. I'm going to run with it like this tonight, and then we can compare and contrast, see if we should put it back to 720 or if 1080 is working okay. It is a wireless connection still for the router. It's wired for the camera, though. So let's see. I'm probably going to end up running a hardwire for the Ethernet so that we don't have any issues with timeouts and lag and stuff like that. But one step at a time. Man. First of all, let me just get the surgery thing out of the way real quick. It went really well. Was able to remove the device, the stimulator. The doctor wanted me to stay in the hospital for a day. I got him to agree to 24 hours. I hate hospitals. I detest it. Let me tell you how silly this whole thing is. I had to have a COVID test before I went in for surgery. The test came back negative for both antibodies and the virus, to whatever. They made me mask while I was in the hospital. I thought my mask protected others. If my mask protects others and I'm negative, then why should I have to wear a mask? It boggles my mind. But I did it. I wasn't trying to make waves. I wasn't trying to cause any issues. I did have a couple of interesting discussions with some of the healthcare professionals that work there. And I will tell you, the majority of healthcare workers do not believe the full-blown media hysteria that is presented when it comes to COVID. Let's just leave it at that. Let me show you what I'm talking about when it comes to this election. Look. Let me clarify a couple of things. First of all, I am not saying that my race at all was influenced by any issues whatsoever. We won't know that even if that's the case. Let me get this set up real quick. We'll get back to that in just a moment. I don't know. Indiana, we do use voting machines, but I don't think they're made by Dominion or Smartmatic or any of the other ones that claim they're having issues. I don't know. I will tell you that our primary had all kinds of issues. And I'm going to say this. Republicans won up and down the ballot. If you think realistically that the head of the Republican Party, Donald Trump, was voted out, but people down ballot voted for straight Republicans across the board in up and down everywhere, Congress, local House, local positions, with the exception of two people in my particular election, one of them being me, every single other Republican was voted into office. Democrats were voted out and Republicans were voted in. I just want to share a thread with you. Hey, Steezy, I will answer your question in a little bit. Steezy asks, who do you think will be the 2024 Republican candidates for president? I'll get to that, but I want to show you some stuff. Now, this is, let me give some disclaimers, as it were, because people seem to think that everything everybody says needs incontrovertible proof. This is not a court of law. I am not trying to convince you that voter fraud happened or the election was attempted to be stolen. But I will say this. This thread that I'm about to show you, which has articles written by major publications, the first few posts alone should be enough for someone to go, gee, maybe we should look into this. Because I'm going to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if Joe Biden won a free and fair election with no cheating, no fraud, no issues, I welcome him as my president. I don't agree with his politics, but I welcome him. If he did not, if voter fraud happened, if election fraud happened, if election interference happened, which simply in my case, I was suspended from Twitter right before an election. Now, let me remind everyone, no reason was given for my suspension. Let's see, yesterday, day before, I was suddenly reinstated. Suspension was dropped. Didn't get an email, didn't get any kind of official anything. I could just suddenly log into my Twitter again. If that's not election interference, I don't know what is. But let's just look at a few things. All I personally am saying is that all of us, every single citizen in the United States, should want a transparent, working, free and fair election that we can trust the results of. I don't believe we have that right now. Let me show you what I mean. This is a Texas girl watching. It happens to be a thread that I found. The person who shared it is less important than what is actually on here, because let me show you this. If you haven't seen this one by now, a woman arrested in Vanderburgh County for pre-checking boxes on 400 plus ballots. Butler County, Pennsylvania loses untold number of mail-in ballots. Now, these are, this one, Tri-State homepage. This one I've personally read the story for and know about it. It happened down in Evansville. She illegally sent out hundreds of ballots. Butler County lost how many? No, Pittsburgh, right? They lost, we don't know how many. Some mail-in ballots. We don't know. Ballots stolen from mailboxes and discarded on roadsides in Washington town. Group claims 400,000 ballots sent to residents who moved out of state or died in California. Fox News. The Hill. Newsbreak. Texas officer and poll watcher testifies on 2020 Houston voting fraud using stacks of driver's licenses. And they have photos. These are the photos. Look at the stacks of IDs. It's poor resolution, but West Palm Beach residents received duplicate ballots and ballots for dead relatives. Pennsylvania postal employee on leave and now fired after bags of mail discovered outside a home put out for trash pickup. 25,263 ballots rejected in Colorado primary. Double absentee ballots sent to residents in Henrico County. PA rejects 336,000 duplicate ballot requests, 34,000 rejected for other reasons. Many voters request ballots up to 11 times. Mecklenburg residents receiving double ballots due to labeling glitch. San Mateo residents received multiple ballots. Multiple absentee ballot applications showing up at Flint, Michigan homes. Florida man arrested for obtaining dead wife's ballot and forging signature to, quote, test the system. Election officials asked voters to not disinfect their mail-in ballots as handfuls have already arrived destroyed and unable to be tabulated. 400 duplicate ballots sent to local voters in Richmond. Duplicate ballots sent to some in North Carolina. How many? Who knows? Placer County residents receiving duplicate ballots. Bay Area voters receiving multiple ballots. U.S. missing ballots never made it to residents of Seminole County. How many? Who knows? It goes on and on and on, ladies and gentlemen. On and on. I'm going to give you, of course, the link, like I always do. By all means, look at this. Glitch sends duplicate ballots in Pittsburgh, Allegheny County. Glitch sends duplicate ballots to Needham Town residents. Detroit elections, where 72% of absentee votes do not match registered voters. 80,000 ballots disappear. New York voting official warns people will use dead people to vote, and a few have. Michigan secretary misprinted military absentee ballots, 400 already issued. Look, here's 4 officials arrested in ballot harvesting scheme. 134 felony voter fraud charges announced in Dem primary. New Yorkers getting ballots with the wrong names and addresses. There's one thing in particular that I want to show you. I'm going to scroll down here real quick. Look, here's America, plenty of voter fraud. DC voters receiving ballots for ex-residents, with some receiving up to 5 multiple ballots. Numerous reports of people going door to door illegally collecting ballots. Of course, Project Veritas uncovered ballot fraud in San Antonio, 7,000 ballots compromised, likely up to 14,000. There's, like I said, there's videos after video after video. There's hundreds, up to 1,000 of these, by the way, because there are multiple threads. But there's one in particular that I want to show you. Let me get to it. Is this it? No. Deceased cat receives a ballot. Give me just a moment. I want to get down to it because this one here is actually pretty important. It's, as they say, evidence. Here's look, calling election while the president was in the lead. The vertical leaps, I'm sure you've seen those. Opening ballots, looking at them and tossing them in the garbage bag lined containers right on TV. Mathematically impossible. But let me get to, here it is. Check your comments real quick, and then we're going to read this because this is actually pretty scary, ladies and gentlemen. Investigators in Harris County. This is, should show you know, this is the actual thing down here, Liberty Center for immediate release. Here's essentially what it says. Election fraud in Harris County is real. There was an election fraud investigation already underway in Harris County when I was asked to join. We were tasked with documenting any possible election fraud in Harris County and to prove or disprove whether election fraud was occurring. So we did. Not only did we prove election fraud in Harris County was actually occurring, despite protests to the contrary, I believe we also proved that the Harris County Clerk's Office, a core group member of the much touted new Harris County Election Fraud, Election Security Joint Task Force, knew the election fraud was occurring and actively worked to cover it up. With regard to one of our investigations, the presiding judge over one polling place was accused on 3 separate occasions of election fraud by attempting to persuade a voter to vote against their will, and illegal voting by actually entering a polling booth and casting a vote for other voters. This is in addition to yelling obscenities and vulgarities toward the current president of the United States and the Republican Party in front of voters. The Harris County Clerk's Office / Election Fraud Task Force investigated the allegations and somehow, overnight, when no one was working, reached the conclusion that there was no evidence to justify further investigation, despite multiple eyewitnesses. In addition to these election crimes, there were also allegations of the following crimes at this location: election fraud, illegal voting, terroristic threat, official oppression, retaliation, assault, and criminal mischief. 2 police reports were made. The task force concluded no evidence. The result was this: Harris County made a conscious decision to leave the accused presiding judge in place and allowed him to continue committing election fraud. They also allowed the individual who made the threats against the witnesses, who were other election clerks, to also remain in place. We took the same information, which they concluded was no evidence and not worthy of further investigation, and obtained a tape-recorded confession from repeatedly admitting that he cast an illegal vote, which is a second-degree felony. Oops. We immediately recommended the presiding judge and the election clerk who made the threats be removed from their positions and banned from working election day pending further investigation. It is my understanding they were both allowed to work the polls again today on election day. After all, he made a promise to not commit any more felonies on election day. Moreover, we released this investigative summary to the media before election day, and they chose not to report this development. Go figure. As it stands, it has been suggested that the election fraud task force may have now focused their investigative efforts on our investigative team rather than focusing on election fraud, as if they ever were. I guess we'll see. We are currently working with the State Attorney General's office on previous investigations and will be turning over all of our evidence and documentation to them. At any rate, no one has to wonder any longer whether election fraud occurred in Harris County. It most certainly has. Ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Is this smoking gun proof that the election results should be ignored? No, that's not what I'm saying. It's not what anybody's saying. What we are saying is that there are some serious problems with this election. There are many issues up and down all across the United States. And we need answers. We, as voters, should feel like our vote matters. There are people that are looking up their votes and they're not counted. There are people who are witnessing votes being destroyed. All we're saying is that these issues need to be figured out in court. They shouldn't be decided on social media. The news media doesn't get to pick who the president is. Let things work through the system. Now, as for 2024, I think it's going to depend. I think it's going to depend on whether or not this election gets certified for Joe Biden. If it does, I believe that a lot of voters, myself included, are going to have some lingering issues with the way that the election was conducted. Look, whether one vote, 2 votes, 10 votes, or 1 million votes were disenfranchised, not counted, flipped, or had issues, we have to get to the bottom of it. These are all issues that call into question the legitimacy of an election. If, for example, let's just say, for example, that my race was so close, 10, 15, 20, 100, what's the line, right? Where does it come up to? But let's say that my particular race was ultra close. Could not a case be made for me to say, well, because Twitter suspended my social media account days before an election, those are voters that I could have potentially reached. So then the vote is called into question. Social media giants like Twitter have taken it upon themselves to determine what's true, what's false, who you're allowed to hear from, and who you're allowed to follow. That in and of itself is an issue. Now, for those of you that say, well, they're a company, they can do whatever they want, it's well within their rights to restrict what's on their platform. Yes, that's true. But there's a key word there, platform. They enjoy certain protections, and I've covered this in previous videos, but they enjoy certain protections and exclusions under the law. Being a platform, they are not a publisher, although they act like a publisher. They enjoy the protections of a platform while getting to do whatever they want, like a publisher, deciding who gets to speak and who does not. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. Let me give you this link because I highly recommend you read down it. It goes to 250, just the first post does. And if you keep going, there's the summary, there's ballot harvesting, there are tweets, there are direct screenshots. Look, here's one. Excuse me. Here's one right here. At 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Pennsylvania, at 12 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Look at this. I want you to look. Reporting, 64%, right? The same number, 64% have been reported. If it's the same percentage, then how did it go from 1.87 million for Joe Biden to 2.284 million, 2.5 million to 2.9 million? If it's the same percentage, obviously more would have had to report, right? I mean, you would think. There are countless issues. Official ballot unidentified civilians, North Carolina, Georgia, Texas, all across the country, there are issues. Project Veritas, which, again, we can debate how strong any of this is as far as evidence. Me showing you a YouTube video or linking something, hey, Bill, good to see you. Yeah, I remember you, man. How's it going over there in Ireland? Just out of curiosity, real quick, is the world waiting with bated breath to see what happens with the United States election? We have some issues with this election. Whether those are widespread issues and are enough to change the results, or whether it's just enough to make a lot of people feel very uncomfortable about what's going on, that's what should get proven in court. There's no way that you can look at this election and say, oh, nothing happened. Everything was on the up and up. Only accurate votes got counted. Only legal votes got counted. There's no way anything untoward happened. I call bull, right? I call bull. We'll have to wait and see what happens. It will get worked out in court. For those of you who are familiar with Sidney Powell, there's a big thing going on with Tucker Carlson right now where Tucker's like, oh, yeah, come on the show and you can prove it. The thing that, and I guess Tucker got mad because she wouldn't come on the show. I'm going to say this. Sidney Powell is an attorney, so she knows what the rules for court are, what the rules of evidence are. According to her, there is plenty of evidence. It'll come out in court if there is. The place to prove this isn't on Tucker Carlson. The place to prove what happened in this election is not during my live stream or your live stream. But I do think that these are good places to show that there are enough issues that it should be figured out in court. That I think we can agree on. It's very disturbing what's happening. It really is. And like I said, it goes on and on and on. Video of someone burning Trump ballots. 7 districts in Milwaukee reporting higher than 100% voter turnout, as high as 202%. Trump legal advisor discusses magical 138,000 Michigan Biden votes that appeared out of nowhere in the middle of the night. And those are not just absentee voter ballots. Those are votes that appeared in the middle of the night. Here's a video here, number 127. After the election, about 3 hours ago, when this was posted in Reseda, California, they're emptying out a ballot box, telling them that they're taking them, but yet the state has already been called. Corrupt Michigan software only recorded 2 votes for GOP candidate, but area voters confirmed there were many more actual votes. Now found that 33 Michigan counties were using the same software. From Western Journal. These aren't gossip rags. These are national publications. What is going on? Minnesota and Washington both had 89 to 90% turnout, something that is highly unlikely. Archbishop Vigano, America is in the midst of colossal electoral fraud. Do not think the children of darkness act with honesty. We must pray now to defeat the enemy. More Project Veritas. Video bus suitcases of votes. I mean, look, on and on and on and on. Is this evidence in a court of law? Of course not. Of course not. This is not, well, it's proven. But I will say this. I really wish the mainstream media would stop saying president-elect, because there's no such office of president-elect. That is ridiculous. No such thing. But they can feed the narrative all they want. That's a good question, Steezy. Off topic, but who is our favorite president in the last 100 years apart from Trump? Reagan. Definitely Reagan. JFK. Here's the thing, right? I think Reagan actually tried to do a lot of good, There were some, obviously some things. Every president does some things that I don't agree with. Every politician, even the ones who I believe truly mean well, do some stuff that I don't necessarily agree with. Trump's no different. The bump stock, the red flag laws, I'm not on board with that. But what I will say is I think Reagan meant well. There was some stuff, again, that he did that I'm not in favor of, but he'd probably be my second favorite. JFK is really close, though. One reason that I really like JFK, yes, he's from a political family, an elite family, and there are people who make the argument that he was part of the swamp and just pretended to fight against it. It cost him his life. I think he fought against it enough that it cost him his life. Some people claim that was the mafia. Some people claim it was the CIA. Some people try to tie Bush to that. I don't know about any of that. I've seen a number of documentaries. I can't speak to the validity of any of those theories, but what I will say is President Kennedy got up and said that he was intending to split the CIA, if I quote correctly, splinter it into 1,000 pieces and scatter it to the wind. He knew even back then, that our nation's intelligence agencies were part of a widespread swamp that washes each other's backs. Here's the thing, right? I say that, I don't know. I've watched some documentaries, some outlandish claims were made. There were certain, things that were parallels that were drawn, threads that were twisted. I don't know. I'm not claiming any of that's accurate. What I am saying is that obviously he was assassinated well before his time. He made some very popular decisions and he made some very unpopular decisions. But no question about it, the man was probably one of the most popular presidents in our history. Definitely to that point. It was a movement, right? It was before my time, but you watch the footage and it was, oh my goodness. And that's a good point. Ted, let me ask you this. Yeah, Chappaquiddick, right? Chappaquiddick. I don't know how you say it. The car in the water, and I can't remember her name, which is unfortunate. We remember her name, but remember his name, but we can't seem to remember hers, which is unfortunate. But there were a couple of interesting issues with what happened. Some people, and we can get deep dark into the tinfoil hat and the conspiracy theories. What if, and I don't know if any of this is accurate, but what if Ted was set up? I mean, they took out JFK, they took out Bobby. It's not off the table to believe that Ted was set up. Yeah, Mary Jo, that's it. Thank you. So let's talk about 2024. If Biden gets certified and becomes the next president of the United States, first of all, for those of you who love Donald Trump and believe that this election has been stolen, take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. That's what court is for. But let's assume all of that gets tossed out and the results of the election are that Biden becomes president. He serves a little bit. Worst case scenario, Harris steps up and she's the new president. I mean, let's face it, they were already introducing her as the next president of the United States. So we know what the agenda is. But let's assume that happens. Oh, I think you're absolutely correct. And that's what I was going to say. If Biden gets certified, Trump already said, absolutely, I'm running in 2024. Here's my concern. If these instances that caused me to question our election system and go, man, what is going on here? If they are not properly investigated and properly figured out in court. Because look, the Supreme Court, the judicial system, it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I ran on criminal justice reform. There are issues with our court system. But it's the last thing that we can count on as American citizens to finalize things, to figure out, oh, yeah, there was corruption. Let's fix it. Where do you fix it? In the courts, right? The courts will hear the case. They will be able to look at the evidence. They will decide yes, no, maybe. If for some reason none of that gets investigated, none of it gets figured out, fixed, I don't think it'll matter who runs in 2024, because whatever happened, this election is going to happen again. And I don't think that anyone who is not part of the swamp will ever get elected again unless we fix the issues this election, whether it was intentional or not. I'm not saying that there was intentional. I have my own beliefs, but I'm not claiming on camera that widespread.
Don't quote me on it.
Right. Don't quote me on this. I'm not claiming insurrection. I will say this. If it did, then this is the only election where we will be able to fix it. It will have to get fixed now, because if it doesn't get fixed, then they're free to do it again and again and again. I'm sure you've heard, I'm going to say that I'm glad you brought that up. Steezy says, I'm sorry, but Harris was an awful pick. Not as bad as Spiro Agnew, but he had so many good options like Gabbard, Yang, et cetera. So many great options. I said this at the time. If they had picked Tulsi Gabbard as a running mate, I do believe Trump might have been in trouble. Had Tulsi Gabbard won the primary and been the primary and picked someone as anybody as a running mate that was a little further left than her, it'd have been a slam dunk. Like, I can love Trump all I want. I can say, yeah, I think Trump would have won. I think that would have been a hard combination to beat, because Tulsi Gabbard, many, yeah, I mean, like a Gabbard Yang ticket. Oh my goodness. Gabbard, many Republicans respected Gabbard, myself included. She was the only one up there who was actually telling the truth. Well, her and Yang to a degree, but Tulsi would just come right out and say, look, this is stupid. You're a fraud. She had no problem saying these things, and the Democrats shut her down. The party shut her down, and the people in positions of power shut her down. I like to think of Tulsi Gabbard as a moderate Democrat, in my opinion, the party of JFK Democrat. And that party is dying very, very quickly. It is becoming far left. That's one reason I'm not a huge fan of the two-party system. And there's corruption on both sides. I've talked about this before. I'm not going to keep it too much longer, but yeah, and that's it exactly. Tulsi literally ended Buttigieg and Harris's presidential run. She decimated Harris. I mean, just boom. Which, as soon as he announced Harris, I'm like, really? Oh, but whatever. Not up to me. I find it hard to believe, with the hundreds of thousands of people at rallies all across the country versus 25 people at a drive-in. I don't see I don't see any way for this election to have been won. But if it was won fairly, I tell you what I won't do. I will not spend the next 4 years screaming, "Not my president." I will not spend the next 4 years on my knees crying at the sky. I'm not going to call him names every day. I'm not going to wish harm to him or his family. I'm not going to threaten them. All of that stuff is ridiculous. I'm not going to play with that. But in order for us to get to that point to where we look at it and go, okay, I'm satisfied, it has to go through the court system. It does. Donovan, is there anything that you want to tell our viewers?
No.
Okay. I just figured I'd check with you before I end it. We'll see what happens as far as my political career goes. I've already talked to a number of people who have expressed interest in me running again for other positions or the same one. We'll see. Hell, maybe I'll run for president. I'm not a billionaire. You can't be an outsider and not be rich and hope to actually do something, right? But we'll see what happens. There are a couple of things this election, and forget about the presidential race in our state of Indiana, that I am not happy about. Obviously, I wanted to win, my election, but I believe that everything happens for a reason, and I believe that I don't look at it as a stop. I look at it as a step to the next adventure, the next challenge, whatever it may be. I'm going to continue doing the show. We have some good guests that we're trying to get lined up for you and make it interesting. So I appreciate you coming out and joining me. Thank you. And hopefully I'll see you all very soon. Probably going to take a day or two to get stuff back lined up, and then we'll start doing the show regularly again. So thanks a lot. Appreciate you coming out. And absolutely, Eric, I learned a very great deal running for office. I'm gonna tell you, I'm looking forward. We won big on the county level. I'm looking forward to seeing how some of the new people that made it into office in our county are going to clean up the obvious corruption that is going on here. I'm going to keep you informed on that. And hopefully we'll have some of the newly elected officials on the show to explain some stuff. So thanks a lot. Talk to you all soon. God bless you. God bless Indiana. God bless the United States of America. Don't give up. Don't give up. It is not over yet.
If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose. This has been Dion's Daily Dose, hosted by Dion Bergeron. Executive producers, Sean Holgram and Michael Beebe. Copyright 2020. Dion's Daily Dose, all rights reserved.